Good morning, students.
Good morning. Good morning.
Today I am going to teach about the liver, gross anatomy of liver. So, what do you know about liver? Any peculiar feature? Yes? Yes, anybody? What is a peculiar feature of liver?
Largest gland in the body.
Yes, it is the largest gland in the body, weighs around 2 kgs. Okay. And one more characteristic feature is even you remove 1/3 of the liver, it can regenerate. So these are the characteristics of the liver. It is one of the largest gland in the body. It's an accessory digestive gland. The secretion of the liver helps for the digestion. It is both exocrine and endocrine gland. It's a mixed gland. Exocrine part is the bile. Bile secreted from the liver helps for the digestion of the fat. The bile, as it passes through the biliary apparatus, the ducts, it is the exocrine part of the liver. In the endocrine part, where the secretions from the particular organ, they are directly poured into the bloodstream, such as glycogen is converted into glucose and glucose is released into the bloodstream. And the plasma proteins from the liver, heparin and cholesterol, all these are released from the liver directly into the bloodstream. It detoxifies the blood from both endogenous, which are released within the body during the metabolism, and exogenous substances such as drugs, alcohol, that enter into the circulation. So it both detoxifies the endogenous and exogenous substances. This is regarded as a hematopoietic organ in fetal life. This helps in the production of the blood cells in the fetal life. Shape and the situation. It's a wedge-shaped organ situated in the right hypochondrium mainly, then right the epigastrium and the left hypochondrium. When the liver is enlarged, the lower part may be present in the right lumbar region also. Weight, as you know, it's the largest gland in the body. The male liver, it weighs around 1.4 to 1.8 kg. Females, it is 1.2 to 1.4 kg. At birth, it is only 150 grams. In newborns, the size of the liver is more because it is hematopoietic. So when we compare the size of the liver with the body weight, it is 1/18 of the body weight. That is 2/5 of the abdomen is occupied by the liver. In adults, it is 1/36 of the body weight, almost like double. So, as you know, liver is the largest gland. It is present in the right hypochondrium. So, some structures should hold it in position. It's heavy, and it's present in the right upper quadrant. So, it may sink. It may sink downwards. That is prevented by some factors such as the hepatic veins. These hepatic veins, they open into the inferior vena cava at like upper and into arrangements, upper and lower. The hepatic veins, they play a major role in keeping the liver in position. that is in the right hypochondrium. And the intra-abdominal pressure, the tone of the abdominal muscles, also play a role in holding the liver. And the ligaments of the liver, there are so many ligaments already I have studied in the peritoneum. There are some ligaments which hold the liver in position, but the ligaments play less role. Like ligaments are not the major factors which keep the liver in position. Okay, whenever it is asked, you should tell the hepatic veins, not the ligaments. Okay, the first thing which should come in your mind is the hepatic veins. See, these are the hepatic veins which are draining into the inferior vena cava. It starts from the different segments and drain into the inferior vena cava. So they play a major role than the ligaments or the intra-abdominal pressure. And the characters of the liver, it is highly vascular organ and fragile also. Moves with respiration because it is present beneath the diaphragm. It is subdiaphragmatic, reddish brown in color. It's a soft, solid, friable to touch. It's very essential for the life as it plays a role in digestion and production of different plasma proteins. It bleeds highly because there is no muscular tissue within the gland which helps to contract the blood vessels within the liver. So whenever there is any injury to the liver, it bleeds profusely. 2/3 of the liver can be removed. Even though 1/3 is there, it can regenerate to its full size. So that is a characteristic feature of the liver. Then anatomical position. As you know, liver is wedge-shaped, prismatic, okay, triangular. You can tell. This is the superior surface. Superior surface is convex at two sides and depressed in the middle. So it is convexo-concavo-convex. It is depressed in the middle to accommodate the heart. Like above that we have the heart. And it is wedge shaped. The base forms the right lateral surface and the apex is directed to the left side. The base is present on the right side and apex is present on the left side. On the posterior surface we have a groove for the inferior vena cava. See here, this thing. So while holding, you have to hold the superior with the surface which is convexo-concavo-convex above and the base on the right side and apex on the left side to keep the thumb in the inferior vena caval groove and the other fingers along the inferior border. The sharp border is the inferior border. The sharpest border in the liver is the inferior border. So you can keep it down. This is the apex, base on the right side, apex on the left side, convexo-concavo-convex surface above and a groove behind. You have to keep the thumb in the inferior vena caval groove and the other fingers along the inferior border, and you have to hold the liver with the right hand because the liver is present mostly on the right side. You have to hold the liver with the right hand. The the groove present on the posterior surface, that is inferior vena caval groove. There we have to put the thumb, then the other fingers along the inferior border. So if you hold like that, even though it is large, it won't slip off. Okay, that is the anatomical position and how you should hold the liver. It will be demonstrated properly during dissection hours. During demonstration of the liver, it will be demonstrated like how you should hold the liver. And liver will be given for discussion in the exam. That time, first thing you should do is holding it in the anatomical position. So that is the anatomical position. As you know, it is prismatic. Base, apex. Base present on the right side. Convex or concave surface above. Apex on the left side. And groove present posteriorly. Inferior border sharp. As it is prismatic, you can compare the liver with this structure. With this three-dimensional prismatic structure. So this is the superior surface, this is apex, this is the right lateral surface, this is the anterior surface, inferior surface and posterior surface. Okay, the surfaces, right lateral surface, superior surface, anterior surface, posterior surface and inferior surface. Got that? You understood about surfaces? Oriented about surfaces? Yes?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Then
ma'am.
borders. Inferior border is well defined.
Etlama.
Yes? Any doubts? Inferior border is sharp. It is well deformed, well formed. Okay? And presenting parts are the surface borders, lobes and fissures, which we study in detail in the next slides. Surfaces. This is the superior surface, right lateral surface, anterior surface and the posterior surface. Posterior, these are parietal. They come in contact with the body wall such as diaphragm and the ribs. Okay, so all these surfaces are considered as parietal. Visceral is inferior surface. This inferior surface is visceral. This comes in contact with the abdominal organs. Okay. So now we'll study its surfaces in detail. This is the superior surface. Superior surface is, as you know, it is bulged at two sides, the right and left, like to fit beneath the domes of the diaphragm, right and left domes of the diaphragm. In the middle it is depressed, where we have, like above that we have the central tendon of the diaphragm, then above that fibrous pericardium, which is holding the heart. Okay. And relations, as we see, the superior surface is related with the right and left domes of the diaphragm above, and in the middle it is related with the pericardium, the central tendon of the diaphragm and the fibrous pericardium, the containing heart. So heart and the liver, they are separated by the central tendon of the diaphragm, because the fibrous pericardium is attached to the central tendon of the diaphragm. Okay. So why it is attached? What is the embryological basis? Why the fibrous pericardium is attached to the central tendon? Do you have any idea? Yes. Why the fibrous pericardium is attached to the central tendon? Embryologically, they are derived from a common source. That's why. Okay. That is superior surface relations. Right surface. The right surface is separated from 7th to 11th ribs. This what you are seeing in the mid-axillary line. It is related to 7th to 11th ribs. Intervening between the ribs and the diaphragm, there are different structures. In the upper 1/3, we can see the liver, the lung, right lung, the lower border of the right lung, and in the middle 1/3, we have the costodiaphragmatic recess and the lower limit of the costodiaphragmatic recess, the parietal pleura. In the lower 1/3, the liver and the diaphragm, they come in direct contact with the ribs. So in the upper 1/3, liver with its lungs, right lung with its covering. Middle 1/3, postdiaphragmatic recess. Lower 1/3, liver comes in direct contact with the liver with the diaphragm comes in direct contact with the 10th and 11th ribs. So these are the relations of the right surface and the superior surface. The superior surface, the falciform ligament, it diverges on the superior surface. The right layer of the falciform ligament diverge and form the superior layer of coronary ligament, whereas the left layer of the falciform ligament, it forms the left coronary ligament, then it forms left triangular ligament. Anterior surface. The anterior surface, this is anterior surface, and the falciform ligament is attached in the on the anterior surface of the liver. The anterior surface, it comes in contact with the 6th to 10th ribs on the right side and 7th and 6th and 7th posterior cartilages on the left side. In the middle, it is related with the xiphoid process above, and below it comes in direct contact with the anterior abdominal muscles in the middle. Intervening between the liver and the ribs is the diaphragm. Posterior surface. This posterior surface, it is grooved in the middle to accommodate the vertebral column. So this vertebral column, it is grooved in the middle to accommodate the vertebral column, and on both sides the liver bulges out, like it bulges behind. In the middle only it is depressed. Posterior surface is in between posterior superior surface and posterior inferior superior border and the posterior inferior border. That is a posterior surface. Posterior superior border and posterior inferior border, they are not well defined. Okay, like the inferior border. Inferior border is very sharp and it is demarcated, very well demarcated. Whereas posterior superior surface, posterior superior border and posterior inferior border, they are not well defined. So some points are connected by an imaginary lines. So the posterior superior border, it is formed by the superior layer of the coronary ligament, then upper end of the groove of the inferior vena cava, then the falciform ligament, like where it diverges, then upper end of the fissure for the ligamentum. This is fissure for ligamentum venosum and this is fissure for the ligamentum teres. Upper end of the fissure for the ligamentum teres, then anterior layer of left coronary ligament. Okay, that is the posterior superior border. And posterior inferior border, from here this extends downwards to the like lower end of the fissure for the ligamentum venosum. On this caudate lobe of the liver, it cuts the upper 1/3 from the lower 2/3 of the caudate lobe. Then the lower edge of the inferior vena cava groove. Then the posterior layer of right coronary ligament, and two layers they they converge at the right triangular ligament. So these are the borders, posterior superior border and posterior inferior border. In between these two borders is a posterior surface. Posterior surface, we have different features which we can study from right to left. This is the posterior surface of the liver. Okay, from right to left. In between the two layers of the right coronary ligament, we have a largest triangular bare area. Okay, this is bounded above by the superior layer of coronary ligament, below by the inferior layer of coronary ligament. Apex is formed by right triangular ligament. Base is formed by groove for the inferior vena cava. This is the largest bare area. You can see. This is the largest bare area. superior layer of coronary ligament, it is reflected above to the diaphragm, and here this inferior layer, it reflects over the right kidney and the suprarenal gland. Okay, this part, it comes in direct contact with the diaphragm, the Bair area, which is not covered by the peritoneum. Bair area is one of the sites of portosystemic anastomosis, where the portal veins anastomose with the systemic veins. In case of portal hypertension, these veins are enlarged. That's the Bair area. Large triangular Bair area. Then we have the inferior vena cava groove. Then to the left of the large triangular Bair area, we have a groove for the inferior vena cava. This groove for the inferior vena cava is also the Bair area, which this part is not covered by the peritoneum. Sometimes a liver tissue bridges over this, so that the groove is converted into a tunnel. Normally a groove will be there which lodges the inferior vena cava. Sometimes the liver tissue from behind it bridges, like from the right side it covers the inferior vena cava and connected with the caudate lobe of the liver. So it bridges, it covers all around and forms a tunnel like thing. This liver tissue is called as pons hepatis. This is pons hepatis. Here we can see the hepatic veins and the smaller branches, they join and form the hepatic veins, which are arranged in upper and lower sides. The lower sides, there are two inferior vena cava, the hepatic veins. Right side one, that will open into the inferior vena cava. Upper side, right, left and posterior. Okay, that will drain into the inferior vena cava. These hepatic veins play an important role in holding the liver in position. Okay. Then next to the inferior vena cava is the caudate lobe of the liver. This is the caudate lobe of liver. This caudate lobe is covered by the peritoneum of the lesser sac. Rest of the liver is covered by peritoneum of the greater sac. Caudate lobe forms the anterior wall of the lesser sac. So this is the caudate lobe. Caudate lobe has two processes, caudate process and the papillary process. These two processes, they come in the inferior surface. They are considered in the inferior surface because the posterior inferior border, it cuts the caudate lobe just above the processes. Okay, so this is the caudate lobe. What we are seeing is the posterior surface. This is the anterior surface, which forms the lip of the fissure for the ligamentum venosum. This is the fissure for the ligamentum venosum. The fissure for the ligamentum venosum contains the obliterated left umbilical artery. It contains the left paraumbilical vein. It contains the ductus venosus, obliterated ductus venosus. Ligamentum venosum is nothing but the obliterated ductus venosus. By embryological importance, I'll share you afterwards. This is the transverse section. If we take a section and this part, transverse section, you can see this thing. This is the caudate lobe, this is the posterior surface, this is the posterior surface, and this is the anterior surface. The anterior surface forms the posterior wall of the fissure for the ligamentum venosum. This fissure or the cleft is occupied by the ligamentum venosum. Okay. And this is the floor, this is the anterior wall of the fissure for the ligamentum venosum. The anterior wall is covered by the peritoneum of the greater sac, the green line. Red line, because it shows that it's the peritoneum of the lesser sac. Green line shows it is the peritoneum of the greater sac. And this is the floor which is not covered by the peritoneum. So this forms the anterior part of the caudate lobe of the liver. Then this is the fissure for the ligamentum venosum. Today I have discussed. This is fissure for the ligamentum venosum. If we take a transverse section, we can see this ligamentum venosum. This fissure is occupied by ligamentum venosum, which is nothing but the obliterated left, the ductus venosus. Okay, this is the anterior wall, this posterior wall of fissure for the ligamentum venosum, and this is the floor, which is non-peritoneal. This placenta having two umbilical veins, right one disappears, left one is left. Like left one is active till the birth. The blood, oxygenated blood from the placenta passes through the left umbilical vein, and it is connected. See, this is the portal vein. It divides into right and left branch, and these are the hepatic veins which join with the inferior vena cava. This is the left umbilical vein. It is connected to left branch of the portal vein. The left branch of the portal vein is connected to the hepatic veins through the ductus venosus. This ductus venosus, it shunts the blood from liver, it's the left branch of the portal vein, to the hepatic vein. From the hepatic vein, the blood is conveyed to the inferior vena cava. So the blood from the placenta, left umbilical vein, then left branch of the portal vein, then ductus venosus, directly it will open into the inferior vena cava. Okay. The blood will be shunted from the left umbilical vein to the inferior vena cava. From inferior vena cava, it will enter into the right atrium. Okay. This left umbilical vein, it obliterates and forms the ligamentum teres. The ductus venosus, it obliterates and forms the ligamentum venosum. These ligaments, they are present in the respective fissures. Fissure for the ligamentum venosum, fissure for the ligamentum teres. So this is the embryological basis, and how the different structures, they are converted into the ligaments. Those two ligaments are the true ligaments. So we have studied about the fissure for the ligamentum venosum. Then to the left of that, we have the groove for the esophagus. Here it comes in contact with the lower end of the esophagus. Then it continues as stomach. So there are different impressions present on the posterior surface from right to left. The triangular bare area, groove for the inferior vena cava, caudate lobe, fissure for the ligamentum venosum, groove for the esophagus. Okay, so this is about the posterior surface. If we tilt little more downwards, then we can see the inferior surface. So this is the posterior surface which we have studied, and we have tilted little more to the anterior part so that we can see the inferior surface properly. So already I have seen here it's a groove for the esophagus. Then esophagus will continue as stomach. So we can see this is the inferior surface which is there in between posterior. This is the inferior surface which is there in between posterior inferior border and the inferior border. So this whole part is the inferior surface. Now we'll see what are the structures which are related to the inferior surface. This is the inferior surface of the liver. We'll start from left to right. Okay. This is the gastric impression. We have ended with the esophagus. So this side, it's the fundus of the stomach, body of the stomach. Then there is an elevation called as tuber omental. This comes in contact with the elevation present on the upper border of the pancreas, that is uh, the elevation of the pancreas. So in between this there is a space of the lesser sac. This elevation is called as tuber omental. Then here just lateral to that, this part like here, then just lateral to this is the fissure for the ligamentum teres. This is fissure for the ligamentum teres, which contains the ligamentum teres hepatis. Ligamentum teres hepatis is nothing but the obliterated left umbilical artery. Then lateral to this is a quadrate lobe of the liver. Then above that we have the porta hepatis. Porta hepatis is a transverse fissure, horizontal fissure, or it's a gateway for different structures which either enter into the liver or exit out from the liver. Actually, this is not a true gateway because this will not give exit to the hepatic veins. Hepatic veins, they directly drain into the inferior vena cava. Okay, the portal vein will enter, hepatic artery will enter, and this the bile duct will come down. It will exit out from the porta hepatis. This porta hepatis, this is the anterior lip of the porta hepatis. This is the posterior lip of the porta hepatis. Anterior lip of the porta hepatis is covered by the anterior layer of lesser omentum. The posterior lip, the posterior layer of lesser omentum. So from here, the lesser omentum will extend downwards. The lesser omentum attachment to the liver is in the form of L-shaped. This is the horizontal limb and this is the vertical limb. Okay, vertical limb is attached to the ligamentum venosum, whereas the horizontal limb, this extends from the porta hepatis, like around the porta hepatis. We can see the fissure for the ligamentum teres. If we take a transverse section, this is fissure for the ligamentum teres. The fissure for the ligamentum teres is, it also has the anterior lip, posterior lip, which are covered by the peritoneum of the greater sac. Here we don't have the peritoneum of lesser sac. And the fossa is not covered by the peritoneum. It's a bare area. So this is the quadrate lobe lateral to the fissure for the ligamentum teres. This quadrate lobe, it comes in contact with the pylorus of the stomach and the first part of the duodenum. So if you trace from esophagus, here we have the esophagus, then stomach, fundus, body, it is J-shaped, and here pylorus and first part of the duodenum. Then lateral to the quadrate lobe, we have the fossa for the gallbladder. The fossa for the gallbladder is a bare area which is not covered by the peritoneum. Fossa for the gallbladder lodges the gallbladder. The gallbladder, porta hepatis, we have already studied. The right margin is free, which contains all these structures. All these structures from before backwards, the bile duct, the right and left bile ducts, the right and left hepatic arteries, and right and left branch of the portal vein from before backwards. Okay. Caudate, and above the porta hepatis we have the two processes of the caudate lobe. My voice is clear or you are hearing some background noise? Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Or some background noise is also there?
Yes, that too, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Noise are coming.
Yes, 1 second. I'll tell them to stop. They are doing something. Yes, above the porta hepatis, we have two processes of the caudate lobe. That is papillary process. This process, it extends at the junction of, this is the left border, and this is the right left border, and this is the lower margin of the caudate lobe. At this junction, we have the papillary process, and at the junction of the right border and the lower margin, we have a caudate process. Okay. Do you remember any relation of the caudate process? Yes. What is related to caudate process? It forms the, yes. Is anybody?
On the right, vena cava groove.
No. Any relation to epiploic foramen? It is present above the epiploic foramen. Caudate process is present above the epiploic foramen. So it forms the upper relation of the epiploic foramen. Like above the epiploic foramen is a caudate process which you can feel. The caudate process of the caudate lobe of liver. Okay. Then fossa for the gallbladder, which is the non-peritoneal area. The gallbladder, the whole of its surface is not covered by the peritoneum. This is the posterior surface of the liver. Here we can see the inferior surface and the lateral parts are covered by the peritoneum, whereas the upper surface, this is the upper surface which comes in direct contact with the liver. That is a bare area. Okay. Numerous cystic veins, they drain directly into the liver. So in between the upper surface of the gallbladder and the undersurface of the liver, we have a cystic branch, the cystic artery and the cystic vein, accompanying cystic vein. These two structures, they are present between the upper surface of the gallbladder and the undersurface of the liver. So that is the fossa for the gallbladder. This gallbladder body, fundus and the duct, cystic duct, through which the secretions which are collected in the gallbladder will be conducted to the bile duct. So just lateral to gallbladder, we have a colic impression. The right colic flexure comes in direct contact with the colic impression. Then above this colic impression, we have a duodenal impression. Here, see, when we trace, quadrate lobe is related to pylorus of the stomach. Then first part of the duodenum. Then here, the first part will continue as second part. So above the colic impression, we have the duodenal impression. Then just lateral to that, on the right side, it's a renal impression. Renal impression for the right kidney and the right suprarenal gland. So the kidney is not in direct contact with the liver. There is some space between the undersurface of the liver and the anterior surface of the right kidney. What is that? What is that space called? In the previous class of the peritoneum, I have stressed more on that pouch. Yes, anybody? That is called hepatorenal pouch of Morrison. The borders and surface, inferior border, which is sharp, and it is notched at two sides. Just to the right of the midline, there is a notch present on the inferior border, which lodges the ligamentum teres hepatis, also called as round ligament of liver. Then just 5 centimeters to the right of this fissure, we have a notch called a cystic notch, which lodges the fundus of the gallbladder. It's a cystic notch. So that is the inferior border, which is sharp. On the this is a posterior surface. Here we can see posterior superior border and posterior inferior border. Already I have explained about the borders. These two borders. These are not well defined. Lobes. Lobes are divided anatomically and physiologically. Anatomical right and left lobe and physiological right and left lobe, the quadrate lobe, and Riddle's lobe. So now we will study the different lobes. The anatomical lobes, they are divided into anatomical right lobe and the left lobe by the attachment of the falciform ligament. This is the attachment of falciform ligament. Right to that is a right lobe, left to that is a left lobe. In front, behind, fissure for the ligamentum venosum and fissure for the ligamentum teres. Divides the liver into left and right. So anteriorly attachment of falciform ligament, posteriorly fissure for the ligamentum venosum, fissure for the ligamentum teres. Those lines will divide the right and left lobe. Anatomical right and left lobe. In the anatomical right lobe, it like almost forms 5/6 of the liver. Left lobe forms 1/6 of the liver. Right lobe includes caudate lobe and the quadrate lobe in the anatomical classification. In the physiological classification into right and left lobes is functional because the this right and left lobes, they drain into their respective ducts, right and left, or they are supplied by the right and left branch of portal vein and the hepatic artery. So this is a functional classification if we divide the liver physiologically. Okay, how we can divide physiologically into right and left lobes? By an imaginary line. As you know, along the inferior border we have a notch, the cystic notch, which is occupied by the fundus of the gallbladder below, and the vena cava. So this is divided by the vena caval, cholecystovena caval line, imaginary line drawn from the cystic notch to the groove for the inferior vena cava. That is the cholecystovena caval line, which divides the liver into right and left lobes physiologically. This line is also called as Cantley's line, which divides the liver into functional right and left lobes. So this is the portal vein. Portal vein will divide into right and left branches. Right branch will enter into physiological right lobe. Left branch will enter into physiological left lobe. Similarly, the hepatic artery, proper hepatic artery, this will divide into right hepatic, left hepatic, into physiological right and left. And the hepatic veins. The hepatic veins, they also drain different segments and they drain into the inferior vena cava. The right portal vein will divide into two branches as right anterior and right posterior, because right lobe is divided into anterior and posterior lobes, because the right anterior branch will enter into the portal vein. It will drain into the anterior part of the liver, and right posterior will drain into, like it will supply the posterior part of right lobe of the liver. Similarly, the left portal vein, it will divide into on the left lobe. The left lobe, it has medial and lateral parts. I'll show you this. This is right lobe, left lobe. Right lobe is divided to right anterior and right posterior segments. And this is the left lobe. Left lobe is divided to left medial and lateral segments. Similarly, these veins also will divide into medial and lateral branches. Okay. That's how the segments are divided, like how they are drained or supplied. The segments of the liver. We have the surgical segments are divided by the Coignards, hence these are named after him, Coignard segments. The right side there are 4 segments, left side there are 4 segments. These segments, they are drained by different hepatic veins, which will drain into inferior vena cava. Right side, right anterior, further divide into 2 segments. Right posterior, further divide into 2 segments. Left side, medial, lateral, medial. This lateral one will divide into 2. The fourth one, it is formed by the caudate lobe of the liver. The second and third, the medial part, 1 and 2 segments. So these segments, they are drained by separate hepatic veins. So during surgical resection, if it's easier to separate the segments of the liver to prevent the bleeding from the hepatic veins. You can take out the segments. Fissures on the posterior surface, it is H-shaped. The 2 limbs and a horizontal limb joining the 2 vertical limbs. The 2 vertical limbs, they are formed by, here it is, fissure for the ligamentum venosum, fissure for the ligamentum teres, then fissure for the inferior vena cava, and fissure for the gallbladder, fossa for the gallbladder, fossa for the inferior vena cava, the groove for the inferior vena cava. Those 2 forms the vertical limbs, and the horizontal limb, the connecting the 2 is the porta hepatis. All these fissures, they are non-peritoneal, not covered by the peritoneum. Okay. Peritoneal relations. Already we have seen along with the surfaces, different relations of the organs and all. We will study non-peritoneal areas, which are called as bare areas. It's a very important short note or short answer which is commonly asked. Bare area of the liver, this is a triangular bare area of the liver between the 2 layers of the coronary ligament, the upper and lower layers of the coronary ligament. This is a large triangular bare area, and the base is formed by the groove for the inferior vena cava. Then along the attachment of falciform ligament. Along the attachment of the falciform ligament, then it diverges into 2. So in between that is a bare area which is not covered by the peritoneum. And as it diverges, on the superior surface we have a cardiac impression which comes in direct contact with the diaphragm. There also it is a bare area. Then floor for the fissures of ligamentum teres and venosum. Already I have shown here. This is the floor for the fissure for ligamentum teres, which is not covered by peritoneum, and this is the floor for the fissure for ligamentum venosum, which is not covered by the peritoneum. So those are the bare areas. Then fossa for the gallbladder. The upper surface of the gallbladder is not covered by peritoneum, and the inferior surface between the the fossa for the gallbladder, which is there in between the quadrate lobe and the right lobe. This part, above this part is a bare area. And groove for the inferior vena cava, it's also a bare area, and porta hepatis. The porta hepatis, which is a transverse fissure, is also a bare area. Peritoneal recesses, the right and left suprahepatic recesses, that is, which is there in between the diaphragm and the liver. Right side, between right dome of the diaphragm and the right lobe of the liver. Left suprahepatic, between left dome of the diaphragm and left lobe of the liver. Right and left suprahepatic recesses. Right and left subhepatic recesses, that is below the liver. Right subhepatic recess, which is also known as hepatorenal pouch of Morrison, it's a dependent area where in case of infection of any organ or inflammation, the fluid will be collected in that area during supine position. During supine position, the fluid will be collected. For example, during cholecystectomy or cholecystitis. Cholecystectomy is removal. Cholecystitis is inflammation of the gallbladder. Okay. In that case, the fluid will be collected in the hepatorenal pouch of Morrison during supine position. This fluid, when the person takes left lateral position, that will trickle into the lesser sac through the epiploic foramen. Okay. To prevent that, drainage tube is put after cholecystectomy to take out any secretions. Okay, that is hepatorenal pouch of Morrison, which is a dependent area in the supine position. The boundaries and all you should know. Ligaments of the liver, there are 5 peritoneal folds, which are the false ligaments: falciform ligament, coronary ligament, right triangular ligament, left triangular ligament, lesser omentum. About the attachment and the extension, already we have discussed. And 2 developmental or true ligaments: ligamentum teres hepatis, which is the obliterated left umbilical vein; ligamentum venosum, which is the obliterated ductus venosus. These 2 are the true ligaments. Blood supply of the liver. Most of the blood to the liver is supplied by the portal vein, almost 60 to 75%. The pressure in the portal veins is less, that is around 8 to 10 mm of Hg. The hepatic artery provides around 30%, that is 25 to 33%. And the pressure in the hepatic arteries will be more, that is 100 mm of Hg. Normally 1500 ml of blood is circulated, like it is supplied to the liver per minute. 4/5 of the blood supply is supplied by the portal vein. Okay, even though it is vein, most of it, the blood to the liver is supplied by the portal vein. Portal vein carries the blood which is rich in nutrients. Like the portal vein, it drains the large intestine and the small intestine mainly. Whatever absorbed material, the fat, metabolism of the fat and all, will be passed to the blood in the portal vein. Then it is transported to the liver. Okay. See, this is a this abdominal aorta, cystic trunk, which will divide into the common hepatic, splenic, left gastric, Common hepatic will give proper hepatic, which will supply the liver by right and left hepatic arteries, and common hepatic, gastroduodenal, which will descend down to supply the duodenum, and right gastric. Lymphatic drainage, the lymphatics, they start around the portal triad, and they they form two lymphatics, superficial and deep. Superficial, they form a plexus just beneath the serous coat. The Glissen's capsule covers the liver. The Glissen's just beneath the Glissen's capsule, the capsule of the liver is called the Glissen's capsule. Just beneath that, we have superficial lymphatics. The superior surface, it will drain into the pericardial nodes and the supradiaphragmatic nodes. The right surface and the inferior surface, they will drain into hepatic nodes and the celiac nodes. Okay, and the deep lymphatics, which start around the portal triad and space of Deci, they will run along with the hepatic veins, and drain into the celiac group of lymph nodes. Applied aspects, the hepatic segments, they are not well defined as bronchopulmonary segments. The anatomy of the hepatic segments is still controversial. So during the section of the liver, we don't consider the segments. Normally partial hepatectomy is done. There is a potential anastomosis between the portal veins and the systemic veins at the bare area of the liver. In case of portal hypertension, those veins will be enlarged. The inflammation of the liver is called as hepatitis. Numerous different viruses, bacteria and parasites such as amoeba, may cause infection of the liver. In amoebic hepatitis, there will be collection of pus in the right suprahepatic recess. In case of liver biopsy is taken in the mid-axillary line through 8th or 9th intercostal spaces at the end of expiration. The needle will traverse both through pleural and peritoneal cavities. The enlargement of the liver is called as hepatomegaly, which can be seen in various metabolic and inflammatory diseases. Common sites for metastatic tumors from different sites to the liver, those are called as secondaries. Secondaries or the metastatic tumors in the liver are very common. The most common is from the colon. The liver bleeding can be stopped by compressing the right free margin of the lesser omentum, because here we have the hepatic artery, which can be compressed, and even the portal vein, to prevent the bleeding from the liver, because most of the blood supply is through that part along the lesser right free margin of the lesser omentum, which is called as Pringle's maneuver. Then liver resection, like 80% of the liver can be removed, like 1/3 can be removed, which will grow to its original size. Okay, that is about liver. Do you have any doubts? Okay, one more thing, cirrhosis of the liver. It is the fibrosis of the liver. When the liver is damaged, the liver cells, they are replaced by a fibrous tissue. So the liver will shrink. That is seen in case of different conditions such as malnutrition in case of children, and in alcoholic cirrhosis, the liver tissue is replaced by the fibrous tissue. Cirrhosis of the liver causes the portal hypertension. In that case, we can see caput medusae. That's the veins. They radiate from the umbilicus. Like caput medusae, it's a Greek ghost or something. Some bad bad person, from whom the snakes will be coming out from the head Like that, it's caput is head. Medusae, like they're radiating from the head. So in the caput medusae, at the umbilicus, the veins will radiate from the umbilicus. That looks like that Greek this thing. Then liver transplantation in end stage liver disease is also a promising treatment in case of hepatic failure. So this is about the liver. The applied aspects, liver may be asked as a long note, and they might ask this thing, bare areas of the liver, porta hepatis may be asked as short answer. So, and for the discussion also, altogether liver is important. Okay. Any doubts regarding this? Yes. Can you answer this? Yes.
Caudate lobe.
Yes. This caudate lobe. Any doubts? No doubts? So this is the end of the class. I'll finish. If you don't have any doubts. No doubts? So read it today about liver. Okay, it's an important topic. So you be prepared.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.